Hey everyone, welcome to Beauty and Wellness Lab's Formulation Lab. My name is Taylor and I'm the head chemist here. And today I want to talk to you about moisturizers. We have an incredible moisturizer here at Beauty and Wellness Labs. And what I want to do is explain to you how a moisturizer is formed and how changing the oil content and the water content will completely change the texture of the moisturizer. So let's go ahead and get into it. So what I'm doing right now, everyone, is just pouring out the water phase. It has to be weighed out to an absolute perfect percentage, otherwise it will throw off the emulsion entirely. So what I need to do next is I need to get the water phase need to be heated to 75 degrees Celsius. And it can't be any higher than that, it can't be any lower than that. It has to be 75 degrees. Okay, so now that we've reached 75 degrees for our aqueous phase, I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the blender, and we need to get some of the water-soluble ingredients in there, and we need to blend it all together. So let's go ahead and do that. So get it into my stand here, and then I like to raise the beaker up to the blender rather than the blender down into the beaker. Turn it on. So now that we've got a good vortex going, then I add the water-soluble ingredients, for example, like collagen. Collagen is a water-soluble component, so we're gonna go ahead and add that in. So as we all know, we've all heard of collagen. Collagen is like the youth molecule, right? So what we do is we add collagen into the moisturizer, and what it's called is hydrolyzed collagen. So instead of having this big, long molecule, we actually have collagen broken into tiny, tiny little pieces. And what that does is it enables your skin to absorb it better, and then your skin actually puts it together by itself, and then it starts plumping out the skin again. Okay, so what we're gonna do next is actually weigh out the oil phase. Okay, so the oil phase is probably the most important part of a moisturizer. If you mess up the percentages, if you mess up the temperatures, the emulsion will ultimately not form. So let's go ahead and weigh out some of our oil components. So one of the first ones that I always do is actually the emulsifier itself. Okay, and so what you can see that it actually comes as little wax pellets. And the thing about emulsifiers are that technically one side of the molecule is oil soluble, and then the other side of the molecule is actually water soluble. So the whole thing is I melt it down into the oil phase first, and then we blend it with the water phase at an incredibly high speed, and the other side of that emulsion molecule, it binds onto the water, and that's ultimately what makes a lotion or a cream or something, is when the oil and water finally bind up. So here's some of the oil. We're gonna add in castor oil right now, for example. Okay, and then I have another oil right here called capric triglyceride. It's a very specialized cosmetic. Actually, it's an extract from coconuts, which is kind of cool. Okay, then next we're just gonna heat it up. And again, like I said before, we've got to get it to 75 degrees. So let's go ahead and do that. The oil phase is heated to the correct temperature. The water phase is heated to the correct temperature. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go use this large machine, and it's called a homogenizer. What that really does is it's a fancy word for a blender. We have more water than we do oil. So what we need to do is we force the oil molecules to be, like, pretend if this is an oil molecule, we force it to be surrounded by a bunch of water molecules. And when that happens, that creates what we all know of a cream or a lotion. And so a little bit about this machine. What this does, you can see it's got 3 different prongs right here, okay? And if you can notice in here that when I spin this, in here it's spinning, and it's spinning against a cage. And so what that does is it forces the molecules and it smashes them against the side of the cage. And what that does is it makes them as small as humanly possible. So let's get this thing on. Let's lower it down, centered. Okay, so then what we're gonna do is grab our water phase. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna pour it in, and then we're gonna turn it on. And that's where the emulsion is gonna start forming. So what we do is we turn the blender on, and the higher the RPM, the better the emulsion is actually gonna be. So what you need to do is get it going as fast as possible. And again, I like to be in the 6,000 to 8,000 RPM range. And you will instantly see the oil and water come together, and you're left with a cream or a moisturizer. Okay, so what we have now is a perfectly formed emulsion. As you can see, it's white. So that tells me that the water droplets are perfectly surrounding the oil droplets. And what we now need to do is hurry up and wait. So it's a little bit liquidy at the moment. So because it's hot, it's about 60 degrees Celsius. We need to let it cool down to room temperature. So we need to wait about 2 hours, okay? And so when you wait about 2 hours, it solidifies up and you're left with this beautiful, beautiful cream. And as you can see here, if I tip it, it's not gonna fall out, right? So this is the exact same product and it's got the beautiful texture. And so this liquid product will turn into this in about 2 hours. And then we take it to our packaging line, and that's a whole different video we'll do. And we're left with these beautiful products.